Anthony Burgess's biographer is a man called Roger Lewis. His biography of Burgess came out in 2003, and about a decade later he wrote this thoroughly entertaining book called What Am I Still Doing Here? My Years as Me. And there's a bit in the book where he talks about the reception. He writes,
"My Anthony Burgess book, the best thing I ever did, where I devised a form that represented its content, bombastic, grandiose, fol-de-rol, was a total disaster, critically and commercially. It was my Tatty's playtime, my Wells's touch of evil. It has its passionate admirers, but for the majority of twatty reviewers who expect a biography to be unimaginatively representational and chronologically conventional, Dr. Lewis had given birth to a Mongol baby, which he should have hidden in an attic. Furthermore, he would be well advised not to fuck again. I knew how Nigel Hawthorne felt when his Lear was hammered, and he vowed never to act again."
well, I count myself among the passionate admirers. It is an outstanding biography. And apart from anything else, it is very funny. I love the system of extensive footnotes that Lewis has. Lewis performs what is surely the first duty of the biographer, which is to explode the myths about the subject. And he does this in a thorough manner. All the fabrications, all the myths Burgess built up around himself are exploded in a very efficient way. But I want to look at something else in this work, What Am I Still Doing Here? It's a kind of autobiography, I suppose. He has a short passage about Liana Burgess. This is Anthony Burgess's second wife. Lewis writes,
"One of the most truly horrible women I ever came across was Liana Burgess, Anthony Burgess's widow. Liana Wilson, as she correctly was, because he never officially changed his name from John Wilson. Burgess was the pen name, as Le Carre is for David Cornwell. Liana made a huge mess of the estate. She alienated publishers, got everyone in a knot, fiddled the taxes, pretended to be in Monte Carlo when she was in Twickenham, caused kerfuffles in a boring Italianate comic opera sort of way. Her sole identity was being the Burgess widow. She was so devoted to his memory, she resented anyone else having a part of him. Even his readers and fans were somehow competition. So imagine what it was like for me being the biographer. It was as if I was stealing him away from her. I was the enemy. I once asked where Burgess was buried, in Monte Carlo or Manchester or in West London. She reacted as if this was one of the most intrusive inquiries ever made, a shameful invasion of privacy. When Burgess died, she refused to allow the press to be informed for several days. She wouldn't organise a funeral, and the hospice got fed up of having the corpse underfoot for weeks and weeks. Strangely, she resented Burgess too, for she was smart enough to be aware that he was all she had in life, and it wasn't much. He wasn't the new James Joyce, the new Goethe. He was a rambunctious northern music hall act, full of histrionic airs and fol-de-rol effects. He can be read with enjoyment again once you realise this. Liana was a paranoid person who'd get involved with shady foreign lawyers in tax havens, who'd flatter her and cajole her, which deepened and justified her paranoia and anxiety.
There are a couple of things that I really like about this passage. One is where Lewis states that Burgess can be read with enjoyment again once you realise that he's a northern music hall act. Well, I don't go along with that completely, but I see what he's driving at. The way I myself would put it is that Burgess is always enjoyable, despite our knowledge, and it should be obvious, that so much of what he says about his life is fabricated and is an act. The fact that he is a showman is part of his appeal. But he is in no sense a fraud. That's a misunderstanding. So I think Lewis is onto something there. But even more acute, I thought, in this passage, is the statement that Liana resented anyone else having a part of Burgess. Even his readers and fans were competition. That is very true. You do find this. Those who set themselves up as the custodians of the memory of certain dead writers. Certain people or groups appear to be devoted to promoting the memory of the dead writer by snuffing out all fan activity not sanctioned by themselves.